This is AHA Business Radio, creating AHA moments for business, by business, and about business, providing opportunities to discover information to help you run your business and guide your decision making. The more you know, the better decisions you make. AHA Business Radio is produced by Allan Hirsh Advisors. For more information, log on to ahabusinessradio.com. To join in tonight's conversation, call 410-481-1300. Now, here's your host for AHA Business Radio, Allan Hirsh.
Good evening. Welcome to tonight's show. In the studio with me tonight is Secretary Jimmy Rhee, who's from the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. Jimmy, welcome to tonight's show. I appreciate your being here.
Well, thank you. It's great to be here.
I ask this of every guest because I think it's very important. What motivates you to get up in the morning and go to work?
Well, what a great question, because I ask the same question to others. What is it you want to be when you grow up, okay?
Right.
What do you want to do where you can sort of tap dance into your office is exactly what you're asking. And trust me, we go through this time and space called life when you once in this eternity. I think we all try to find a meaning as something that truly means something for you. And for me, I'm an immigrant. And this is a new a country where I came with my parents to find better life and so on. So my mission is to somehow make this country better, okay? That's my way of saying thank you to this great country.
So you joined the Hogan administration in, I guess, when he became inaugurated in 2015.
Was elected.
Elected and inaugurated, I guess, January of 2015.
Right.
So how did you get involved, or what did he see in you that brought you into this kind of position? I know you talked a little bit about before the show, but why don't you tell the listening audience, because I think it's important what your background is that brings you to this kind of position.
Well, I think simply put, I've been a businessman all my life, and I never worked for government before until 2010. I lived in Maryland, Howard County, and I got a call from, of all places, Virginia. Bob McDonald's team called me to see if I was interested in overseeing their international trade and investment. So I ended up working for Governor Bob McDonald as his Assistant Secretary of Commerce and Trade. And after that was done, I went back to my business.
What kind of business was that?
Over time, I owned a manufacturing firm. I was an 8A firm in the mid-'80s. And I was the only 8A firm, I think, in Columbia, Maryland, in Maryland, period, as an 8A firm. So I used to make a lot of athletic sporting goods.
Okay.
And I made uniforms for DPSC, which is DOD, Defense Personal Support Center. And so, I've been involved with many kinds of business, including internet-based business. I've done consulting on renewable energy space. So I've done many things. So simply put, I'm a business person, small businessman. So after I was done with my Virginia, I went back to my business, working the field. One day, I got a call from this office, Governor Hogan's office.
Well, Governor-elect Hogan's office.
Governor-elect Hogan.
At the time.
Yes, right. And my initial response was, did you call the right guy? What is this for? And that was the first time I met the governor. And what a great person that he is. And I found out later that his wife had heard of my name. As you know, Yumi Hogan is Korean-American, and she has heard of me before. And I think that was the start. And we ended up with that telephone call, and here I am.
And I think you mentioned before the show, and unless it's confidential, you can tell me, you mentioned in your first conversation with him that it's all about, you used the terms 19 to 4.
Yeah, back then, when we first met, I said, Governor, you know where I'm from. The score is 19 to 4. And he knew exactly what I meant. What I meant was, in Virginia, there are 19 Fortune 500 headquarters established there. In Maryland, we have 4. And the governor simply told me that, hey, this is the reason why we are here. Maryland will be open for business. And all my colleagues, that's what we are doing every day to improve Maryland, where Maryland becomes a better place to live, work, and raise family.
Okay. Just want to remind the listeners that I have in the studio Secretary Jimmy Rhee of the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. If you have any questions or comments for the Secretary, please give us a call at 410-481-1300. So, what is the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs, and what does it do?
Well, my office, Minority Affairs, acronym people call us as GOMA, Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. It was established in 1978 after the Civil Rights Movement to eliminate discrimination in the public marketplace. So the program that we have in Maryland called Minority Business Enterprise it's a very old program. It's one of the gold standards in the country. And so my office, what we do is simply this. We set goals. We establish best practice for the program. We also monitor the implementation of the program. So we receive reports from 70 state agencies on their implementation of Minority Business Enterprise known as MBE program. And also, yes.
For most people out there, that's the Minority Enterprise?
That's right. Minority Enterprise. In Maryland, Minority Business Enterprise is classified as small business owned by minority and woman-owned businesses, yes.
Okay. So what are the, you're talking about 70 different agencies. So what are some of the policies that you try to establish that will make a difference for the small businesses that we're trying, that I think you're trying and the state is trying to grow so that maybe one or two of them might become Fortune 500 companies, hopefully. Well, I mean, it happened to, I don't know if they're there yet, but I think it happened to Under Armour. I think they finally got to Fortune 500.
Absolutely.
And Steve Bisciotti's company, the placement company, they're there. Both of them started as small businesses. Steve Bisciotti got his first start by getting an SBA loan.
That's right. I mean, first step to any business endeavor is being a small business person, okay? There's no exception to that. So what I try to do is simply this. Let's break down the whole system called procurement for small business in 3 different sections: input, processing, and output. At the input process, my goal is to have as many small business entities participate in the program, make the certification process easier. We want to have a lot of businesses win contracts. That means I want all the players to register, be certified, and participate in this procurement marketplace. That's the first part, increase the number of companies. And second, the processing part. The process ought not to be so cumbersome where people give up during the process. It should be easily understood as far as what business must do to prepare themselves, the process that they have to go through to qualify, to certify, and also to bid after certain contracts. So we want to make the process part transparent, simpler, and easier. And third is the outputs part, where some of the contracts that we have in the state, some of them could be unbundled so that more business could win those contracts. If we have more coming in through the input stage, we better have a bunch of small contracts at the output stage to keep the balance between input and output. So that is my goal. Make the whole system more like a flowing river rather than stagnant pool where only few companies win.
Well, and that's all geared to helping the small minority-owned businesses. So what's the certification, and we're going to go to a commercial in about a minute or so. Some of the people that I talk to say certification can be burdensome. Mm-hmm. So, and they haven't done it because of that. Is one of the things you're working on, or should you be working on? I don't know the answer to that, but I would assume you are.
Yeah.
Working on trying to streamline that process, make it easier and simpler for the small minority-owned businesses in the state to qualify.
Absolutely. Before Governor Hogan, we've heard stories that in the prior administration, it took 9 months for small business to become certified, okay? So we even had this joke that, small business could become certified. By the time that business gets certified, that business is out of business, okay? Took too long. Now, the Maryland Department of Transportation has improved the system drastically, whereby the 9 months has been compressed to less than now 3 months. Their goal is to in weeks' time now, okay? That's the goal that we have right now. So we are making improvements. So certification becomes easier, more predictable as far as what you must do to prep your business to become certified. So we're making the system easier now. And we'll talk about the procurement modernization later.
We need to go to our first commercial break right now, so we can continue this discussion. As we go to the break, we have the traffic update, and I come back, I will continue the conversation with Secretary Jimmy Rhee of the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. And later in the show, I have the AHA Business Trivia Contest. I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, and this is AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio, 1300 AM.
Now back to AHA Business Radio, creating AHA moments for business, by business, and about business. Once again, here's your host, Allan Hirsh.
Welcome back. I'm in the studio with Secretary Jimmy Rhee from the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs, and we've been talking about, first of all, the certification. If you have any calls or any interests about these areas or want to talk to Jimmy or myself, please give us a call at 410-481-1300. So just before we left for the break, we were talking about certification. Although your office doesn't do them,
no.
It's your job, as I understand it, to monitor them and make sure that we're getting the best possible results on the certification process.
What a certification or a bidding process to this governor, customer service is important. So we want to make sure that the experience that the business goes through during the certification process is satisfactory and fair and transparent. So absolutely, we look over those factors to make sure the certification process is something that does not become too cumbersome for most people. Yes.
Yeah. And at the break, we also talked about the MEB. I think that's it. The Minority Enterprise Business Certification includes women, but there's also a separate one for women as well. Is it not, for some businesses?
Well, you can be a woman-owned business, just like the federal level. Okay. Now, in state of Maryland, MBE encompasses minority-owned as well as woman-owned businesses. So you could be a woman-owned business with MBE certification.
Oh, okay.
So you have two certifications. No, you have two things you could claim, but when you are going after a particular contract, you can only be one of the two.
Okay. That makes sense for me. So I just want to. So you've really increased decreased the time through the administration that it takes to get those certifications.
Oh, absolutely.
And that I congratulate you and the governor on, because I know, government procurement, from what I know, sometimes by the time the 9 months came around, the government contract was already bid and released.
Absolutely. And I want to congratulate the hardworking people at the Maryland Department of Transportation under Secretary Ron. They are doing a tremendous job in improving the system.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
So, but some of the other things that you're working with, and I know your interests are in small businesses, is the whole idea of improving the procurement process. Not only for major companies, but more importantly for the minority-owned business, the small business owner. So what is happening in your office and with the governor's office on minority affairs that's trying to improve? And I think you mentioned there really, in the first segment, there are really three segments here that you're talking about. The ease of procurement is the bidding process,
input output,
and the delivery itself.
Well, let me just simplify this for small business listeners who are out there, and just give them a little picture of the state of small business in Maryland. Okay, from the macro perspective, the governor and the lieutenant governor They're out there to improve the forest in which all trees can survive. Okay, that's the macro picture. So they're out there improving our fees and tax structures. You know, many people know that this governor has either reduced or eliminated 250 fees and taxes since last year. Most famous one being eliminating rain tax and also the reduction at the Bay Bridge that everybody talks about. And the second thing is they are improving the regulatory structure. The regulation should not impede a business from accomplishing their objective. It should guide them, okay? So we are working on, as a matter of fact, the governor has formed a commission to do exactly that.
Well, on that particular, I know that commission actually issued a report about 2 weeks ago, I guess, a week or so ago.
Yeah.
And the chair of that commission is actually going to be on my show December 27th to talk about, and I believe my number could be off. It's 187 recommendations of, and it's the first step. There are going to be others reports down the line, as I understand it.
It's a 3-year effort.
A 3-year effort. Right. This is the first report with 187 regulatory issues that, and we'll be covering those on December 27th,
right?
To improve the access and reduce the amount of regulation for business in the state of Maryland.
Streamline, improve, check the relevance of certain regulations and so on. So I believe governor is going to suggest that all 187 recommendations be pushed forward. At the same time, governor has also created a commission to modernize the state's procurement, to streamline certain processes, make it transparent, make it easier and simpler for small business. Lieutenant Governor Rutherford chaired the commission, and we had 19 members. I was one of the co-chairs, and we just submitted our 57 recommendations to improve the state's procurement process. So we are excited about that as well, because that will help small businesses throughout the state.
Okay. So what are some of those, if I might add, since I have you here and you were co-chair, what are some of the, not being myself, ever being in government contracting directly, what are some of the major areas or the major recommendations that this commission came out with?
Okay, without going into details, I think
I don't think we want to hear all 57 of them.
No.
But in general, yes.
The big picture is simply we want to utilize more modern technologies. Okay, to utilize 21st century technologies. Everybody uses mobile phone and apps and computer. Everybody has computer, so we need to sort of upgrade our system. Second, we need to simplify the RFP, request for the proposal process for everybody. Perhaps we could use standardized RFP templates and so on, rather than having 70 different formats. Maybe one single format would do, okay? And perhaps we could also get into more extensive training of state personnel who administer and implement the state's procurement system, as well as train small businesses that are out there, inform them of the certification procurement processes that they need to be aware of. So it's sort of a lifting the tide. I think it lifts all boats. That's what we're trying to do, okay?
Yeah, because, I mean, I work with a couple of government people in the federal government contracting space as clients, and they're always complaining that the RFPs are longer than the proposal, and sometimes they're written in such a way that there is only one company that's truly in a position to deliver all that is requested in the RFP.
Yeah.
So it's really been front-loaded to guide the bidders not to bid, because there's, the super companies, the Fortune 100, Fortune 500 government contractors are the only ones that really can deliver on everything that's required in the RFP.
That's
so
right. Yeah.
I would think one of the things in the state to do with small business is, as you say, is to simplify them so that they're not, and I use the term, it's not what my clients use, onerous requirements to match in order to make it competitive for small business.
I tell my staff that the managing this small business space requires two things. Number one, it requires your competency. You really need to understand all the rules and policies that regulate the space, okay? But at the same time, there's a competition among small businesses themselves, as well as competition between small business entities and large businesses. So it's getting that balancing act, okay? Procurement is not just dishing out contracts. It's a economic means. It's a means through which we do economic development, okay? That means procurement officers, they have to be aware of where the small businesses are, what they do, their competency level, and so on. Okay, so we're taking a holistic approach to improving the system. Now, having said that, on a micro levels, our office is out there. We focus on three areas. We believe in order for small business to be successful, they have to have these three things aligned. Number one is they have to be good at what they do, the corporate competency. Because if you're not good at what you do, you compete in price, okay? And that's a miserable place to be because there's always somebody cheaper than you are, okay? So somehow uniquely differentiate yourself, enhance your competency, and be unique.
And we'll talk about the other two when we come back from break, but I want you to think about this question. Is it all in government contracting, is it always about the price? And that's a question that the listeners might want to think about because so often it might be. But anyway, I'll let you answer that when we come back. And when we do, I'll continue this discussion with Jimmy Rhee, the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. I'm Allan Hirsh, and this is AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio, 1300 AM.
Now back to AHA Business Radio, creating AHA moments for business, by business, and about business. Once again, here's your host, Allan Hirsh.
Well, welcome back to the show. I'm in the studio with Secretary Jimmy Rhee of the... I think I did that wrong again. It's Rhee, right? Rhee. I got it right then. I got it wrong. Anyway, my apologies, Secretary of the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. If you have any questions or comments or to join the conversation, please give us a call at 410-481-1300. As we went to the break, you were talking about one of the issues that businesses have to think about. Well, not issues. You were looking at three of them. That businesses need to understand in order to be part of the procurement process. And the first one you talked about was competency, making sure you have the full competency to do what you're contracting to do.
Right. Well, simply what you do, your business. If you are restaurant owner, you better be the best cook out there, okay? It's that simple. And second thing is access to capital, access to funding. I mean, money to business is like blood to our body, without which you cannot sustain your game. It's that simple. So I think people need to have a healthy understanding of financial flow that impacts their own business, okay? Whether it's cash flow management or a long-term capital requirement. That's very important, okay? And third is you better have some insightful understanding of certain policies that impact your ecospace or your company, whether it's certification, whether it's procurement process. If you don't understand those, you really cannot position your business so there's a tailwind behind you propelling you forward, okay? You could have a headwind against you. Could waste a lot of time and effort. So when you have those three things aligned, competency, access to capital, and your understanding of external factors, whether it's policies, whether it's globalization, whatever it is, only then, when those three things are aligned, you have your business plan resting on top of them, okay? Or if you miss one of the three legs, the probability of your success has been undermined tremendously.
Okay. So how do you, and I don't know if your department does it or other departments, I know the Small Business Administration does competency programs, SCORE, which is part of the Small Business Administration, and there are a lot of incubators around Baltimore having as many as most cities. Some people think it's the largest number per capita for a city with Baltimore and ETC and BWI Tech at UMBC, and Towson has them, Hopkins has one. Tremendous number of incubators that help by educating in the core competencies of business. The second thing you talk about is money.
Right.
I don't know how many people out there understand that and I think it's 1.5%, but you can correct me if I'm wrong, of the video slots
Right,
of the
1.5%.
state's revenue from the video slots are earmarked for investment loans and investments in small minority-owned businesses in the
Yes.
state of Maryland.
Right.
So when we talk about capital, could you talk a little bit about how this area, the small minority-owned, women-owned businesses in the state of Maryland can access some of this capital that is available through the video slots?
Well, we have the video slot money, VLT fund, that is distributed through 7 entities spread across the state. And they're actually looking for competent small businesses to lend money to. And one of the problems they run into quite a bit is the lack of paperwork, the lack of bookkeeping, okay? Numbers are very important. Numbers are like you looking at yourself in the mirror. Numbers provide the same thing to business. It tells you exactly what kind of business, how strong it is, how weak it is. So having that strong bookkeeping is very important for the bankers.
Please say that again. I have a couple of clients that I work with
Right.
that truly don't understand how important it is to understand. I mean, the figures are only history. It's where you are at a given point in time, but it also sets up the keys for where you're going to be going into the future. If you understand the past, you can learn to improve and do better into the future. And without proper bookkeeping and accounting ability, you're putting small businesses put themselves at a terrible disadvantage.
I mean, there are a lot of business leaders in our state, such as Joe Haskins from Harbor Bank, or Stanley Martin, who runs a wonderful fund in the Baltimore area, and many, many others that are out there trying to help small business. And I have heard from each and every one of them that sometimes they run into businesses that are capable. But if you look at their bookkeeping records, there's no way for them to sort of accurately ascertain the status of the business, strength of the business. So bookkeeping is absolutely essential. Good accounting is important because accounting is the language of business, okay? And that's how you communicate to bankers, through your accounting and your bookkeeping records, okay? Yeah.
And just want to remind everybody out there, please give us a call at 410-481-1300 if you have any questions for Secretary Rhee or myself. We'd be glad to answer them. But it's absolutely, I mean, you can't get a loan unless the business knows whether they think you're going to be able to pay it back.
That's right. Yeah.
And the only way to know that is where you are, where your business is financially at any given point in time.
That's so true. I mean, there's no ifs and buts about it. There's no exception. If you're not competent, if you don't have a good records, you would have a hard time getting money unless the money comes from your parents or your family members.
Well,
okay, yeah.
I'm a firm believer that if someone wants to become an entrepreneur and start a business, the two most important things it's really one combined, is the passion and the dream.
That is so.
If you don't have the passion and the dream, money and the right people, so many people say they fail because of it. And if you don't, but to me, it's really, if you don't have the passion of the dream, you shouldn't be doing it.
Well, being an entrepreneur is the most difficult thing to do. It requires special person, special character, perseverance, will, passion. It requires everything. All the things tangible, all the things intangible. That's simply put.
Because you use the example of the chef that opens the restaurant, that has to be the great cook. But running that restaurant, only 20%, maybe 25%, is preparing the food.
Absolutely.
The rest is running that business. It's
right.
it's the finances.
That's right.
It's real estate where you put the restaurant, location.
See, most people have to recognize the difference between two different kinds of small businesses. Okay, you have a small business that are startups that are out there to disrupt a space. They are the future Ubers, future Airbnbs. Okay. These people get their money from venture capitals. It's equity-based money, okay? And then you have a much larger group on the other side called small business entities. These are restaurant owners, barber shops, the others, okay?
They're clothing stores,
That's right.
They're whatever in the non-chains in the malls. They're it's the small businesses, the locksmith.
That's right.
It's the auto repair shop.
Everybody else.
It's the gas station that's owned by a franchisee who's a small business. It's a McDonald's that might be owned by a single person that owns one franchise.
And venture capital, venture capitalists, they don't invest in this space. The group there in their small business block, they get their money from banks, traditional banks. It's a debt-based money. It's a very different ball game. So, you have to understand the macro picture of who you are, what you are, and make sure your business is best positioned to take advantage of the existing system that we have, whether it's banking, whether it's resources that are out there through SBA and so on.
Yeah, and also through the 7 Maryland approved lenders.
Yes.
And funders who have the obligation to take that money, invest it into the small minority-owned businesses in the state of Maryland.
That's absolutely. Sometimes I joke that you might have a great small business with bad record keeping, okay? And to me, that's like the most beautiful girl in a bar, in a dark corner, okay? Until you put a little lipstick on her, put some light on her, you will never know that she's a beautiful girl, okay? That's what it's all about, is to get your business out there, illuminate your strength. But how do you do that? Well, business is all about numbers, okay? Quantitatively, you have to show your strength, and that's what the bankers look at.
Well, the bankers look at that, but your customers and your vendors look at why you're in business. They look at the reason you're doing what you're doing.
That's right.
Not always what you're doing, but they're really looking at why you do it and the reason you're doing. They're looking at the passion that you have and the dream, the other end. But you have to have both ends to make the business work.
I totally agree with you. I think the great example is like in technology. You have a lot of technology companies that sell what or how, but Apple sells the why. Okay.
Well, you're absolutely correct, and it's a great example. Need to go to our next break. When we come back from the break, I will continue the conversation with Secretary Rhee of the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs, and we will also have the AHA Business Trivia Contest. So when we come back, please listen. Give a gift certificate to a local restaurant. I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors. This is AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio 1300 AM.
Now back to AHA Business Radio, creating AHA moments for business, by business, and about business. And now it's time for tonight's AHA Trivia Question, where you can win great prizes from the AHA Business Radio Show. Call 410-481-1300 if you know the answer. And now with tonight's AHA Trivia Question, here's your host, Allan Hirsh.
Well, welcome back. Tonight's trivia question. When was the first minimum wage law passed by Congress in the United States? Again, when was the first minimum wage law passed by Congress? The caller with the correct answer at 410-481-1300 will receive a gift certificate from the French Kitchen, a member of the Bagby Restaurant Group in downtown Baltimore. An amazing restaurant. But give us a call if you think you know when the first minimum wage law was passed by Congress. I'm talking to Secretary Jimmy Rhee of the Governor's Office of Minority Affairs. And we've been talking about, we were really off the subject a little bit about talking really about, I guess not really, it's about the competency thrown in and some of the money needed for small minority-owned businesses. These are the ones who, many of them have never been in business. Right. And they need this kind of thing in order to get advantages, get the opportunity to do government contracting and work in the, so, and the third one was, you were talking about, was being insightful. Can you explain that a little bit more?
Well, insightful understanding of policies that impact your ecospace is absolutely important because...
So can you give an example?
Well, let's just say, unless you understand the certification process, okay? Unless you understand what the certification does to your business, what kind of benefits it brings to your business, why would you want to enter the government space in the first place, okay? You got to have certain understanding of the policies. As far as going through the government maze and getting a contract, which is an arduous process. But if you understand the process, you can decompress the time, effort, and money that will take for you to be successful in this space. I think understanding is absolutely critical point, okay? You have to understand the game that you're playing, and you got to understand the environment, all the obstacles, challenges, as well as certain benefits that you might have. Now, if I could use an international advantage, I did something long time ago when I was trying to recruit international conglomerate, okay? I'm not going to name the company, but company was trying to sell a LED lighting kit in the U.S., and they were manufacturing everything in Asia and trying to sell those products in the U.S. Unsuccessful. So the CEO came to me and saying, hey, can you help me, all right? Simply put. So I said, you have 2 out of the 3 things that I talked about here earlier. You have corporate competency. Your product is pretty good, okay? 2, you got a lot of money. You're a big business, okay? You can sustain what you're doing for a long time, okay, without feeling the pinch.
Right.
But you don't have that third thing, the policy inside, understanding of policy that could help you. Now, if you understand the policies, it could provide certain opportunities. So example that I gave to him was, if you give me your product 70% manufacture, allow me to do the last 30%, what I will do is I'll bring handicapped people, okay, to finish your product. Because handicapped group is hard to employ type of people. So government has special policies to help them, right? So when they touch your product could become made in USA certified. It could become mandatory purchase item for certain federal facilities. So it's not just buying and selling because you are the cheapest or you're the best. You create this X factor, the variable, and you satisfy that and party happens. So you sort of triangulate the concept.
You use the example of a restaurant. So like a restaurant that goes to open up and doesn't know the health codes.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, if they don't know the health codes and the health department comes in and the sinks aren't in the right place and they don't have the fire extinguishers and they don't have the proper ventilation, they're not going to be able to open. They've just spent hundreds of thousands of dollars as a small business owner.
That's right.
If they don't know there's in the area in Baltimore County, I know of a store that built the whole thing out and then realized after they were finished they didn't have enough legal parking spaces to open.
And one of the greatest problems that small businesses face is this: they become certified and they finish the program without getting any contracts because they don't understand the government process, okay? That happens in the federal 8A space quite a bit. I'm sure that happens in the MBE space here in Maryland as well. So that's what we're trying to obviate.
Well, that was the other question. The last question, or one of the last questions I wanted to ask, is yes, you have these minority-owned businesses. They're small. Sometimes they become bigger. And they no longer qualify, whatever the definition is, being small. But they've spent this 5-year, 10-year, or as an 8A, what is it, 9 years, I think?
9 years for 8A program.
Yeah.
Right.
What happens when you graduate?
Right.
If you haven't thought about that or spent the time planning the future, all of a sudden you no longer qualify as a small business and you've relied on the government contracts because it's a small business. You now have severe problems of where does your business go?
Well, programs such as 8A or MBE, they're not designed to become be-all and end-all, okay? There has to be a transition, successful transition into private sector where you compete. And I think that's something that small business always has to think about. Without such, it's pretty tough out there, okay? You cannot become totally reliant on government contracting. So I strongly encourage all small business to compete in the private sector as well to be successful in the public sector.
Yes, I want to remind everybody, we still have the trivia question going, which is when was the first minimum wage law passed by Congress? Please give us a call at 410-481-1300 if you know the answer. It shouldn't be that difficult if you're sitting in front of your computer. I don't know it, so please give us a call. Love to have a winner. I like the restaurant, and if no one wins it, I'm liable to use it, but no, I won't. It's great. So and I know it because I have a client who just graduated from 8A. Mm-hmm. They're supposed to be, the process for 8As, there's supposed to be a counselor within the government system to help them. Are we in the state of Maryland working with the minority enterprises in helping them understand the needs to transition from an MBE to a competing general major contract, non-minority owned business.
Absolutely, and governor and lieutenant governor are mindful of that. Governor especially was a small business person, and he understands that. So in Maryland, we're not only out there doing a lot of outreach programs to help small businesses, but what we have here is, besides the MBE program, which is all about subcontracting, we have another program called Small Business Reserve, known as SBR. Now, Small Business Reserve program is a unique program. It's where only small entities could become prime contractors. And our certification is you can do it yourself, okay? Self-register, self-certify. Very easy to enroll. You just go to the email and market system, or you can just go to procurement.com, procurement.maryland.gov, okay? And instructions over there as well. It's very easy program, and out of the 57 recommendations we made for the modernization report, we have proposed that we expand this program, increase the goal from 10% to 15% for SBR, and also expand the number of agencies that participate in the SBR from 23 to all 70 agencies. So we are absolutely mindful of that.
Okay, I do have a caller. Mark, you're on the air. Mark, you there?
Yes, I am.
I assume you're calling on the trivia question, unless you have a question for the secretary or myself.
I'm calling about the trivia question.
Okay. What's the answer?
1938.
Absolutely correct. Do you have any idea what the minimum wage was set in that law?
No, I do not.
It was actually 25 cents an hour in 1938.
Okay. Feels like my last raise, but okay.
Well, that's between you and your boss. If you want to talk about that, we can do that offline. But I appreciate that. But they're still fighting over minimum wage, as we all know now, in this city and across the country. But anyway, if you'll hold the line, Dan will take your information, and we'll send out that gift certificate to you in the next day or two. Okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling.
25 cents, huh?
That was the minimum wage in 1938. Remember, this was the end of the Depression.
That's right. Yeah, there was a lot of money then.
That's right. There was a lot of money back then. So, any last thing? Because I don't think we've covered everything. We've got about a minute or so. Anything else that you want to bring up and talk about your responsibilities and this whole thing about how the state is trying to encourage small minority-owned businesses?
Well, Maryland is a unique state. We are becoming majority-minority state. If you look at our population, 1/3 of our population is African Americans, close to 10% Hispanics, 6% Asians, okay? And they're approaching fast 50% mark. Now, when you add women-owned businesses on top of that, we're talking about majority of the population. So small business community is absolutely important segment of our population.
Well, one of the things that everyone always points out, employment increases through small business.
Oh, absolutely.
That's where jobs come from.
Absolutely. Small businesses create more jobs. They create more patents. And they are, simply put, the foundation of America. Okay?
Absolutely. Yeah. I do have to stop because we're running out of time. If the listeners want to reach you or the Office of Minority Business Affairs, how can they reach you?
Well, they can go to our website, the www.goma.gov.
Okay. Well, thank you. I want to thank my producer, Dan, filling in tonight. I want to thank Larry Wilner of LW BizFlix, who videotapes the show. Please join me next Tuesday at 6 p.m. when I have a special CEO Spotlight show with guests Matt Baker of Terrapin Adventures, David Pizer of Visiting Angels, Charles Ramos of CR Dynamics, and Stephen Dumick from Ravensbeer. I'm Allan Hirsh of Allan Hirsh Advisors, your host. To reach me, call me at 443-977-4500 or visit my website at allanhirshadvisors.com. You can also listen to the podcasts on the AHA Business Radio website, and you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at AHA Biz Radio. This has been AHA Business Radio on CBS Sports Radio, 1300 AM.